Joining us this morning, the Secretary of State in Michigan, Ruth Johnson. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Yesterday was pretty exciting with sunshine and warm weather.
I'm ready to do some kind of summertime dance, and that might be premature, but it makes you want to.
It does.
So you have offered some recommendations to the feds about strengthening the election system. I
have. Learned a lot being Secretary of State for the last 6 years for Michigan, and I was a county clerk before that. And I think there's 5 basic things that the federal government needs to do to help us keep our elections run locally, but give us the tools we need. And that's, first of all, make sure every state has the Social Security Administration data for free, updated every month, about people that have passed away. And we need to remove those that are registered in more than one state, and it has to be done at the time that they get their new driver's license and automated. The federal government is the only one that knows who the non-citizens are. They got registered accidentally. Our staff was ordered, and all the staff all over the country for good reason. The federal government didn't want anyone to be treated differently or discriminated against, but the states didn't have the ability at the time to check to see if they were citizens or not. We do now, but we have taken off over 3,400 non-citizens. We have to have a voting paper trail. Some machines have no voter paper trail at all, and I think that lacks confidence. You can't check. There's not transparency or accountability. And then, lastly, I think it's very important that the federal government create an election crime database so that we can quantify and qualify what the problems are so we can fix them. Right now it's anecdotal. We have 83 just in Michigan, and we're going to do one for our state, but we need a national repository. But we have 83 counties that have prosecutors, and then we have city and township prosecutors, and then the AG. So even in Michigan, it will be no easy task, but we do need a national database, and then that helps get rid of the rhetoric and helps us get right down to where there are issues and to make sure that we can fix them.
When we said that you provided this information to the feds, that means right to the vice president. How did this come about? Were you asked to do this?
No, I've been working on these issues since I took office. One of the reasons I ran for Secretary of State is the Pew Center said we had 102.54% of the eligible electorate registered to vote. So my top priority is integrity in elections, and that means we have to have a good qualified voter file. So I did work with Candace Miller on trying to get people removed when they register in another state, but the lobbyists for the DMV, which we call Secretary of State branch offices, but I'm only one of 2 in the nation that have both elections and motor vehicle. Maine is the other state. So I have access to some of this information, but it's been very difficult. We've put a lot of time into it. I even went and visited in 2012 Homeland Security in Washington, D.C. That's quite a place to get into, like Fort Knox. But I did visit, and I did ask for help on citizenship, and they said they'd get back to me. Well, what was that? 5 years ago. There was no cooperation, no help. And after I read that our Vice President, Mike Pence, is expected to head Election Integrity Commission, I thought, maybe I'll have somebody that really will care and help us get some of these tools to the states and to the local clerks. And we have over 1,500 local clerks that conduct the elections, and we work at the state to keep the qualified voter file up, and they also help us. But we really need some help in it. I've always been troubled by these DRE voting machines that some other states use, because the machine companies made a lot of money because everybody had to have one instead of marking your ballot in a little cardboard or plastic box and putting it in a machine. But the fact is, a lot of them don't have any kind of retrievable information except electronically. And I just think that's we need to do nonpartisan, common sense. These are reasonable requests that everybody should be able to get behind so that we don't have cheating. And when I was a county clerk, we had 2 races that were settled by people drawing who got the short straw, in essence, because it was a tied vote. We had a vote for U.S. Congress that was determined by 15 votes. So I'm always concerned when somebody says, a few thousand non-citizens, who cares? Or, Self people voted twice. They voted in Florida and here. Well, it's a big deal to me. One bad vote really nullifies somebody that is a a citizen and an eligible voter that should be able to vote. And I'm very proud to say that Michigan was named number 1 in the nation by USA Today for our Secretary of State branch offices getting people to register to vote. So it's kind of a double goal here. One is get as many people registered because we want people to vote as long as they're eligible, and then making sure our voter rolls are clean. And it's been my mission and my passion for a long time now.
Madam Secretary, the president said pretty quickly a couple of weeks ago, look, there was a bunch of voter fraud in the election. We got to get to the bottom of that. How do you react to that? Is that, somebody in your position dedicated to this integrity thing, as you've indicated, I would imagine that makes you shudder when you hear that.
I think this is why we need an election crime database, because it's invaluable to know, to have a repository of election crimes categorized with the information easily retrieved so we can help quantify and qualify the problems rather than anecdotal information, any kind of comments that are made. I don't know what they're based on until we do that. So yeah. I think that's the most important thing, to have a database so we can see where our problems are. And we do need help from the federal government on non-citizen information. And I get it only because I'm Secretary of State for the branch offices, the people that have died, and we've removed 482,000 people that are are deceased. I think we all have to work together on rather than going backwards. I want to go forward. I want to find somebody to thank. I want these vulnerabilities plugged. And so I'll work with anyone that will work with me on them. And so far we're getting good feedback to my staff from the congressional delegation.
So, yeah, most of the reaction to the president's claim there has been similar to what you just said. Okay, show us where you think that's true. Back it up somehow, and that seems to have been the tenor of that.
Well, I'm not asking for anybody to back up anything. I'm asking to go forward. We have vulnerabilities. They have to be fixed if we're to have confidence in our system. So going backwards doesn't help. We know we have issues. We know we have vulnerabilities. They're nonpartisan. It's common sense. It's not too much to ask. Let's get them fixed. The conversation has been brought up, so let's see who will help get it fixed to ensure the people of this country that we do have a system that we are watching for vulnerabilities, and then we do fix them.
So has there been a response to your recommendations? Well, how was it received?
I haven't talked to anyone. My staff have talked to several of the people in Congress for Michigan that represent Michigan, and they've been very positive about it.
All right. So we presume then that the vice president would take these recommendations under consideration.
I hope so. I just think it's a good common sense approach.
Yeah. You talked about how the Secretary of State setup is only a two-state thing. Michigan and Maine are the only two that do this. But obviously there are officials in charge of elections in other states. Yes. Do they join you in these kinds of perspectives?
It's interesting because, like, the Lieutenant Governor of Alaska serves as a kind of a Secretary of State, and in Illinois, the Secretary of State only does motor vehicle, and so we're definitely different all over. But we do have meetings, and there's one going on right now in Washington, D.C. Mike Seneco, my chief of staff, and other staff are there right now with these ideas so that hopefully we can go forward as a National Association of Secretary of States with these recommendations. So we're going right to the top to Vice President Pence and congressional delegation, but we're also working with the National Association of Secretaries of State. Not everybody's called that, but throughout the nation, anyone that's a chief election official for that state. All
right. Well, we'll be interested to hear how this shakes out and what the responses that you get. So come back anytime.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. Secretary of State Ruth Johnson, State of Michigan, 95.3 WBCK.